So I learned who was it around me that really can support what's happening to me right now. And although in the world, everyone's going through the same thing, there are still people that can support you. There are leaders out there that are leading. There are champions that are really pushing things forward. So who is it, that friendectomy, who is it that's supporting you, and who is it that's holding you back? That's the hardest thing to do in a mindset reframe. Who is it around you that's keeping you from getting to where you want to get to? Because you got to ask some hard questions. You got to really think that through, right? Your success is determined by the top 5 people you spend most of your day with, right? So when you think about that, if you write it down, if you think about in your day or in a week, who are the top 5 people you spend time with, then ask that question of how supportive of they of what I'm trying to do. You're going to ask some hard questions in that friendectomy. The second thing I needed to do is I needed to start working on myself. In the first year, I didn't do that. I took me a year to realize this was something that I needed to do, and I had a lot of other people suggesting it as I was going through my friendectomies. So I needed to work on myself. That in the beginning, that started with counseling. And then I started moving into less traditional types of support. There was masterminding that was coming through, business supports. There were all of these different ranges that counseling couldn't address for me. Although it was a great start, I knew that I had to continue to invest in myself. Some of it wasn't just education. Some of it was physical. So I had to make sure that I was investing time at yoga, investing time at the gym, investing time in my health, investing time in relationships. So it wasn't just now who can support me, but who can I support? Because I think a lot of you will find when you can help someone, it really is fulfilling, right, to us. So that was the second thing. The third thing that I did that was really tough, but that was really important was I started taking responsibility. And I'm going to reframe that by saying, I realized that what led me to my business failing and leading to my marriage ending was this idea of ego. This idea that I really thought I could do more than I could actually do. This idea that I needed to be more forgiving of myself. The idea that I needed to understand what it is that I needed to do to better myself. So this idea of letting go of ego is another sort of mindset reframe that I think is really important for us. So those are sort of the mindset shifts I'd like you guys to really consider and really, look for those opportunities to do that. The second thing I want to talk about is, now I'm going to ask you guys a huge favor. I did one mistake. I got to plug in my laptop. Give me one sec. Okay. Sorry. As I've been on webinars like all day, so I had to do that. Thank you. So the second thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about more tactical and practical skills. So you've heard me talk about mindset. These are things that I suggest highly that you reframe because it worked wonders for me. I will tell you again, the key here is being forgiving. It took me 7 years to get even where I am now, and I'm still working on myself. But when we talk about tactical and practical, let's talk about things like what can you do right now? So there's 2 of you on this call this will apply to, and Chantel, we may have to do a shift for you. Those of you that have been in business, you've already had clients in the past or probably are dealing with clients right now. And so when it comes to pivoting sales in tough economic times, the first thing you want to do is you need to stop. Like, you just need to do a hard stop. There's this idea that when things are getting tight or when things are not working, we have to hustle harder. It's almost like when your car runs out of gas, you start pressing the pedal to the metal to try and get further. Eventually it's going to run out. So you need to stop and really think about, and when you stop, that's a good time for mindset reframe, but you need to stop and really look at things are changing. Things are a little bit different. So the core question you want to ask here is, am I offering still relevant? What I am offering right now, is it still relevant? Certainly, as we come back to the world that we had before, which could take time, it could be valid then. But right now, if we're looking at 3 weeks, 18 months, 3 years, you really want to figure out what is it that people need right now, and what the best way to understand what people need right now that you can offer is you need to talk to your existing clients and your old clients. You need to reach out to them. You need to reach out and say, hey, how you doing? Hey, Kim, how's it going? I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I know that we worked together some time ago, and I just want to see how things are working. The reason why you want to do that is twofold. Number one, market research is critical in what's happening right now. All of us, again, are in this idea of just spinning our wheels and pedaling the bike harder. We need to stop and ask people, what is it they feel like they need right now? And granted, things are still unknown, but people will essentially have an idea of what they're feeling and what they need. They'll know, Bob, I don't know where I need to be putting my money. Should I be pulling my money out? Where should I be investing? Do I need to worry about groceries? There's so many things that come out in a conversation. And your goal is not to try and figure out how to sell them in that point. Your goal by talking to existing and previous clients is to listen. And Kim said it earlier on the networking portion of this call, is to really listen and hear what they're saying. Write it down if you have to, record the call, but hear what it is that they're saying and what their fears are and what their challenges are. You're not trying to resolve it there on the call. You're simply trying to collect data. And that's what we're after. So when it comes to pivoting sales, you can't pivot unless you know the people who have worked with you before, what they're currently experiencing. Keep in mind, the reason why I'm asking you to focus here first is because you want to make sure whatever it is that you're modifying your offer to be, it is to your ideal client. So theoretically, if you're working with these people and you've worked with them before, they are your ideal client. Some business owners will say, well, only half my clients are my ideal clients. I kind of just take whoever comes. Okay. So that being said, make sure you're only reaching out to your ideal clients, the people you love to work with, the people that really resonate with what you have, the people who have gained some sort of success from what it is that you've offered them, right? Whether it's service or product based, they've achieved something. So you really want to reach out to them and talk to them. What's going on? How are you feeling? What's in your mind? You can ask them how you can help them in this time or how you can definitely support them. But that's key because that's going to give you data onto what they're thinking right now, right? So that's number one. Number two, the other thing I want to talk about is the idea that you've talked to existing and previous clients and you've picked out the ones that you love working with. So theoretically, you've identified your ideal client, theoretically. If not, all you're doing is when you're talking to previous and existing clients, I've just asked you to choose the ones that seem to be ideal for you. So there are some demographics and psychographics that fit that model that really explain this group of people. You now want to take that into the outside world and look for those people in the outside world. So let's say you're Kim and you work with authors who are trying to get their first book out, who maybe they're women, they're over 30, or maybe they're over 40 because they've experienced life in a career and now their life is in transition. And you've talked to these people already in your past. Now your goal is, where do I find more women just like that? First of all, it could come from the previous clients you had and the existing clients you have. You could say, hey, do you know anybody that could benefit from what I offer? Because I'd like to get their feedback. Or number two, look for groups on Facebook, look for connections on LinkedIn, look for communities on Meetup. Try and find out where these ideal clients already exist and talk to them. Same rule. You're not here to sell. You're not here to say, hey, I know you're struggling. You're here simply, if anything, to talk to them, listen to them, and maybe even validate what your existing and previous clients told you. If your existing and previous clients have said, honestly, Kim, my big fear is right now, I just don't feel like I have anything to write that's of importance, if that's what you're hearing. When you approach this new subset of ideal client and you're asking them, I'd love to hear from you. What are you thinking? What are your fears right now? They don't know you as well. It may be a little bit hard to pull out of them. So when you say, can I ask you, do you feel like what you have to say, that story you have in you, doesn't feel relevant right now? It gives you opportunities to pull out of that. And they'll do one of two things. They'll say, yeah, Kim, you've hit it on the head. I absolutely feel that way. Or, you know what, Kim, that's not quite it. This is kind of more what I'm feeling. So it's really important to be able to take that data that you've glistened before from listening. And now you're still listening, but now you're doing what's called active listening. You're now applying a bit of what you've gained already to validate if that's how people are currently feeling right now, right? So again, really think about what your core main offer is. What is it your previous and existing clients are experiencing right now? What is it that your ideal clients are going to need right now? And then think about the offer that you have, whether a product, whether a service. It doesn't matter if you clean houses. It doesn't matter if you coach people through life. The idea here is think about it. And when you hear what they're saying, you want to figure out a bridge to what it is you do and what it is you can help them with. Don't make shit up. I see that a lot. The fake it till you make it crew. This is not the time for that. If you think, well, I hear a lot of them saying they need life coaching and I clean houses, so I'm going to give them life coaching. Don't do that. This is definitely the wrong time for you to completely go on a limb and try a new service. All I'm asking you to do is, you've got a service. How are you pivoting it? So I'm going to keep picking on Kim because I know Kim inside and out. So, Kim is maybe hearing people saying, I don't have a story I don't feel like I have a story worth sharing. These are tough times. Why is my story important? And then she hears from her ideal potential clients, my story doesn't seem important at this time. We know Kim's main offer is helping people get a book done. Now, she does a lot more than that. I'm just paraphrasing. But the idea here is Kim might now say, you know what? Maybe I need to do some kind of webinar on understanding why this is the right time for stories. And then maybe my offer modifies to say, I will help you come up with your signature talk, with your signature story. I will help you understand why during these times your signature story is really important. So she's still offering what she's offering, but she's now crafted it to what people need right now. And if you're thinking, well, Bob, nobody's going to spend money right now. See, the key here is you've already dealt with most of these people, the ideal and the existing and the previous clients, and you're going to want to deal with these ideal clients. All you're doing is offering what they've already told you they want, and especially those ones that have had experience with you, know that you can deliver on. That's the best way to pivot. If you're an accountant, so Maria said that she does accounting. So if Maria is hearing from people, Maria, I'm terrified about my income, maybe Maria starts saying, okay, so how can I help them understand how to look at their numbers and figure out how to make money last longer, right? Maybe Maria isn't a mindset person. Maybe she's more of a black and white numbers person. Maybe she's able to say, look, for an hour session on Zoom, I'm going to go through all your numbers and we're going to figure out how you can stretch your dollar better. What can we cut? What's important, right? So when we think of Cheryl talking about this idea of health and wellness, well, Cheryl, everybody's terrified. We've got stress. We've got all these things going on. So the key here becomes, how does your product help them with what's going on right now? And then, of course, with Laura, people are looking for work. Even if they're already employed and they're just off unemployment or on temporary sabbatical because of what's happening, people now are going to be looking for work. And I can tell you, Laura, and you already know this, there are a number of LinkedIn profiles that look like the back of a shoe. There really isn't any difference, anything that stands out. In fact, I just did a webinar 3 weeks ago before this all came to head, talking about how to build your expertise using LinkedIn. So maybe Laura starts saying, you know what, I offer these people the idea of visibility on LinkedIn. Now I'm just going to core focus it on how do you get visible in times of strife. So and again, you want to make sure that you're validating this with existing and previous clients, with the ideal market that you've defined. And it's an iterative process. All iterative means is that you're going to continue to ask and try. You'll go back to these people and say, hey, Kim will go back and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing something like this. Would it interest you? Yes or no? If they say yes, great. If they say no, understand why. What is it more that they want? And you're constantly evolving and iterating until you've got something that people are just jumping into. But guys, this only works if you focus on that ideal client. A lot of small business owners panic and they spray and pray. The idea that they just throw things out there and hope something sticks. This is not the time for that. You are going to find that you're in a market that's a lot more sensitive, right? Which means that I'm not going to say you have only one shot, but you want to make sure that the shot you take is one that sticks. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind, right? And then the third thing you really want to do when you're asking these questions of existing and previous clients, when you're talking to the ideal clients, is I want you guys to take a second look at market research. So these first two things I've offered you is what's called primary market research. You're talking to the people that you need to get data from and getting it firsthand from them. You're not leading them. The second one, you're sort of asking, but you're not leading them. But now there's secondary market research. Secondary market research is simply, what are the experts in your industry talking about? And by the way, I guarantee you in all your industries, there's somebody talking and giving an opinion on what needs to happen and what needs to change. So what you want to do is the tips I've given you so far, I've just taught you how to pivot your business for the next 3 weeks to 18 months, whatever. I want to make sure that when you make this pivot, that it's something that can have longevity, because I'd hate for you to have to keep pivoting every 2 months as maybe the world is evolving from this. So number 3, secondary market research. What are the experts in your industry? What are the thought leaders in your industry? What are they saying about this? What are they predicting is going to come from this trend? Maria, it's easy for Revenue Canada to say, yeah, we're going to delay our dates when taxes are due. We're certainly going to delay that. But I promise you, you're probably going to find people talking about how that's going to impact so many people on their personal income. Is it going to delay refunds? If they have tax debt, what's going to happen to that interest rate? So there are so many impacts that can happen. What can you offer that people are going to need 18 months to 3 years from now? So don't just focus on the current. That's another thing we tend to do when we're in scarcity mode. What can I sell now to get money now? focus on, you've heard from your previous and existing clients, you've heard from your potential ideal clients. Now focus on what are the experts saying is going to trend in what's happening in your industry right now. What is happening in the community around LinkedIn? What is happening around the health and wellness community? What is happening in accounting and bookkeeping? And what is happening in the idea of being an author? What is happening in those industries? And what is it that you currently offer, or maybe now your pivoted offer? How can you continue to pivot to continue to meet that trend? And if you start that now, you become a trendsetter, meaning that you start to get a lot of early adopters. You start to become seen as that expert. So as other people start copying you and start jumping on the bandwagon that you've started, you will always be seen as that leader in that industry. And why is that important? Because you will find that you'll get to a place in this idea of trend setting and this idea of understanding what's coming. You will get to that place where referrals will be so much more stronger, right? So I've asked you to pivot your sales to talk to existing and former clients. I've asked you to look at where ideal clients want. But now imagine getting referrals during this time, right? Imagine that, times are tough, times are changing. People want to know what it is that you offer. When you start looking at trends and start evolving your offer, whatever it is that you offer, or your product or solution, to what is potentially happening in the next 18 months to 3 years, you become that expert. You become that go-to person that people start referring. You know what? I have no idea how this is going to impact my income over the next 2 years. Maybe my kid's got to go to college. Am I going to have to withdraw from RRSPs? So granted, Maria, you do accounting, you're not a financial planner, but maybe it comes to, hey, why don't we look at really figuring out what the potential risks and the potential changes are to your personal income when we look at your income tax over the next year or two. So you're just predictive. Now, when people start asking that question in April, May, and June, people are going to be like, you know what, Maria was talking about that the other day. You should talk to her. So as by building that trend, being that trendsetter, you start to become that person that people go to. So that's essentially what I want to offer you is those three key things, right? Number one, talk to your existing and previous clients about what it is they're feeling and what it is they need. Number two, you've ideally identified your ideal target market. I've said it, I think, 3 times. And so talk to them about what it is they need and what it is they desire. And then number three, I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. Number three, becomes secondary market research. What are the experts, the trendsetters saying in your industry so that you can now keep pace with what's coming up? Those are 3 core things that will help you pivot your offer and pivot your sales. The main thing I want to get across here, everybody that's listening, please don't stop what you're doing and start something new. Everything I'm talking about is simply taking the offer that you have right now and figuring out how to pivot it, how to adjust it to the change that's happening right now. So hopefully that was really helpful. I want to get that out there and make sure that you guys get the benefit of it. I know that we have quite a lot of time because there's only 4 of us in the group. So I will let Kim. Oh, that's right, Chantel. Okay, so let me double back to Chantel really quick. So Chantel, when you're a new business, right? And you're thinking, well, I'm just trying to start sales. Your disadvantage is you don't have previous clients to talk to, but your advantage is you have the ability to start a whole new offer. Now, I know I just said earlier, I don't want you to stop and start a whole new offer, but if you're starting from scratch, that's the right, now's an okay time to build a new offer. Because when you're an existing entrepreneur and you try and stop and start, it's really hard to build up momentum when your brand, if you will, has been built on that previous offer. When you have no previous offers, whatever you build now can be completely catered to what your audience is needing, right? So Chantel, you've got an extra step to do. Is the first thing you've got to do is you've got to really clarify who that ideal market is. And in network marketing, the answer tends to be everybody. It's not going to be everybody, especially in these times. Who is it that really needs the solution that you're offering? Start drilling down to age, gender, education level, even geography if you want. Start drilling down into psychographics, personality type. Did they go to university? Excuse me. All of these other different components, level of education, and start thinking about value graphics, right? Value graphics are really important when you're building an ideal client profile, which is, what's their political sway, what's their cultural and religious sway, because that's going to impact how they understand the world of health and wellness, right? Are they health conscious? Obviously, that's a big one. Thank you, Kim. So for you, Chantel, that's the only difference to everything I've said is that first part, you're actually going to, you're not going to go to previous and existing clients. You're going to define your ideal client profile first. Who is that person? What do they look like? Where can I find them? Then the second step applies to all of you. Talk to them and get that information and validate information. And then number 3, of course, what are the trends coming up in the industry that you can craft something to fit that offer?